Okay. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I guess last time we met was, I think, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember. Essentially, so what we've read so far, I guess just to jog everybody's memory, we started out in the first two rivulets reading about how Mawlana Kashifi, he poses the problem, right? The way he says it is that if you have it, if you've got it, and by got it we mean if you've reached that true level of iman, both external and internal spirituality, and Ainul Yaqeen, that level of becoming an arif, where you have that special knowledge that Allah has given to you, as Imam Mendes was describing. People are going to want what you have. They're going to be in hasrat of to have what you have, right? And we learned about several examples in the first two rivulets. The example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the disbeliever, and how he was the Prophet's guest. And then the next week we learned about the story of Bayezid, or the disbeliever, who was having a conversation with the believer about the faith of Bayezid. He said, if the believer was encouraging the disbeliever to come to Islam, and he said, well, listen, if you're talking about the faith of Bayezid, yeah, that would be great, but it's too much for me. I can't handle it. But if it's your faith, thanks, but no thanks. And then we learned about the muazzin who had an ugly voice. We had a really nice conversation about how we have this a lot today. These people who are representatives of our faith, but don't, at all levels too, but they actually, they have the opposite effect. Maybe their intention is to try to bring people to faith, but it's the opposite. So that was the challenge that was posed by Sheikh Kashifi. But now he's talking about the solution. So last time, I guess it was 2-3 weeks ago, he kind of started from the basics. The last set of couplets that we read was about just remembering, first of all, what's our purpose here? Why are we even here on this earth? And he talks about the world of Alast, right? In the story of where we were all souls. A lot of good discussion that can be had about that, but Allah brought all souls together, and we were there also. And he said, Alastu bi rabbikum, and then everybody said, Qalu bala wa shahidna, right? It was, am I not your Lord? Was what Allah said to all of the souls, and every soul testified, yes, you are. And we shahidna means we testify to that. And we talked about how the set of couplets talked about how it's all about not just testifying verbally, but testifying with your heart, with your actions. Every deed that you do should be a testification of Allah's oneness. And so this third rivulet over here, the couplets we're going to be reading is along the same theme. And so I thought I would just kind of give that quick introduction before we started. So if you want, I can read maybe 2 couplets, and then if similar to before, we can go around reading the translation, taking turns. And essentially, the set of couplets that we're going to be reading is about, as you can see over here, it's about devotion or worship, and essentially, as you can see here from the first 4 lines over here, there's really 3 stages of devotion. There's the devotion of the ordinary people, which is obedience to Allah's command, and then there is the devotion of, I guess, people that are 1 level higher, which is those that are on the spiritual or the mystical path, as it says over here. And there's a lot of, we can sort of go into the details of what that means exactly. And then the highest level is the devotion of the elect, Akhassul Khawas, right? Those who serve God with love. And so I'll go ahead and read the first 2 couplets in Farsi, and then we can take turns reading the English. So, ما خلقت الجن والانس بخوان، جز عبادت نیست مقصود از جهان. نعمت حق است خدمت کردنش، شکر نعمت چیست طاعت کردنش. So maybe Sibir, you're at the top. Saber, you're at the top of my screen. Would you like to go first?
I did not create the jinn and humankind except to worship me. Recite this text. The final purpose of the world is nothing but divine worship. Restore your manliness by engaging in devotional works, that you may become like the hot sun in the sign of Aries.
Okay, so I just realized right now that there's actually like 2 couplets in the Farsi that are not here in the English, and it's actually in between the 2 that Brother Saber just read. So maybe I'll read the Farsi for those, and I'll do my best to translate it in English. So the first one was ما خلقت الجن والإنس بخوان جز عبادت نیست مقصود از جهان. Again, another place where Mawlana Rumi he brings together Arabic and Farsi and blends it together. He's referring to the ayah of the Quran, ما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون, which means I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. And he's saying, read this, recite this. There's no purpose to the universe except for divine worship or divine certitude, being an ibadah, doing ibadah, or being an abid, right? Which is, it's much more than just, when we think about ibadah, we think about, fasting and praying. But when you think about ibadah, it's all about ubudiyah, right? That being a true slave of Allah, and that's really what the purpose is. And that encompasses everything about our lives, every action. Right? It's not just to mean that, okay, our job is to pray, 1,000 times a day, 24 hours a day. Our worship should be reflected in everything we do. And so there's the next verse. It says, نعمت حق است خدمت کردنش. It means to serve Allah, yani khidmat kardan, to serve Allah is a blessing that Allah gives to you, right? So it's a blessing that he gives to you. And then it says, shukr ni'mat chist ta'at kardanesh. Means what is shukr ni'mat? What is the best way to thank Allah for that blessing that he gave us? And then the answer is ta'at kardanash, means doing ta'ah, right? Obeying him. And then the next couplet, it says, آن دلی کو مر تو را مانع شود از عمل آن نعمتت ضایع شود. So it says, if you have a heart that prevents you from doing that amal, right, or from doing those good deeds, on ni'matat zaya shavad, it means that blessing that Allah gives you is going to go to waste. Okay, so sorry, I'm just kind of doing my best to translate directly from Farsi to English. It's hard to fully capture what Mawlana Rumi is saying. And then the next verse, which was the second one that Brother Saber read, which was from book 5, 2513. It says, Daruye mardi bukhor andar amal, means so over here it's translates it as restore your manliness, but actually in Farsi what he's saying is eat the medicine of manliness with your deeds, with your devotional works. Ta shavi khorshid garm andar hamal, so that you become a warm, hot, eminent sun with your deeds. So again, interestingly, there, those are two verses that are here in the Farsi book, but not in the English. And interestingly, I couldn't find these in the Mathnawi either when I tried looking it up, but it's in the Lubb-e Lubab. Okay, so then the next verse, the next couplet, which is 3, 4, 5, 8, 4. I'll read the Farsi for that. It says, جهد کن تا نور تو رخشان شود تا سلوک این رهت آسان شود. Brother Lavan, you're the next on my screen. Would you like to read the translation?
Well, just 584 or 4584.
Yes.
Strive for your inner light to become radiant so that your traveling in the path of devotion and service to God may be made easy.
Right, okay. So Brother Saber, could you go to the next page, please? Okay. All right, so I just wanted to make sure the Farsi and the English were reading the same thing. Okay, so I'll read the Farsi of the next two. کودکان را میبری مکتب به زور زان که هستند از فواید چشم کور چون شود واقف به مکتب میرود جانش از رفتن شکفته میشود. So Brother Tahir, you're the next one on my screen. I'm going to read the next two.
Okay, inshallah. You take children to school by force because they are blind to the benefits of knowledge. But when the child becomes aware of the benefits, he runs to school. His soul expands with joy at going. A child goes to the school in sour resentment because he has seen nothing of the rewards for his work.
Yeah. So Yeah, so the third one that you just read, the Farsi for that is میرود کودک به مکتب پیچ پیچ چون نبیند مزد کار خویش هیچ. And this is really like an amazing analogy when you think about it, and maybe at least I see this in with my own life. The times where maybe I sometimes I just go, doing the prayer is hard for me sometimes, and then sometimes when you feel it, right, and you actually go to it with enthusiasm, and the analogy of a kid who is really hard to teach, who goes to school by force, is because they don't know what benefit it has for them. So I will read the next one. So چون کند دانگی به کیسه دستمزد آنگهی بی خواب گردد شب چو دزد. So Brother Giovanni, you are next on my list.
Right. It says, when he puts in his pocket a single dang earned by his handiwork, then he remains sleepless at night like the thief.
Right. And then the next couplet says, جهد کن تا مزد طاعت در رسد بر مطیعان آنگهت آید حسد. Brother Sajid Sayed, can you read 4, 5, 8, 9?
Let me give me the shot. 1 second. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Because I have it in a different screen. 1 second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Brother Mehdi. I can't get to that screen.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Let me see who's next on.
Can you pass me and come back if you don't mind?
Yeah, no problem at all. So let's see, Imran, are you?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. Which verse? I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, you found it? It's 4, 5, 8, 9.
Page 34.
Salam, Brother Mehdi. I'm having some technical issue here.
Oh, okay, no problem. Would you like us to just maybe come to you next time? Next time around? Okay. Imran, can you see verse 4, 5, 8, 9?
Strive for the rewards for obedience to God to arrive, then you will envy the obedient.
Yeah. So this is, yes. So this is a really interesting one. It's basically, it's saying, if you don't feel it, if you don't have inside you that eagerness to rush towards worship, that's something where you need to work on yourself. You need to seek hard, try really hard to make it come to you, that eagerness for doing ta'ah, right? Or that eagerness for being obedient to God, to worshiping God. And he says, when you get to that point, بر مطیعان آنگهت آید حسد, means when you get to that point, then you're going to be jealous of other worshipers. So it's really interesting, right? We always talk about how jealousy is a bad thing. But over here, it's actually this type of jealousy, not malicious jealousy, right? But when you see, for example, people who are truly obedient of Allah, and you wish, oh wow, I wish I was like them. That feeling of envy is actually a good one, right? And that makes you try to be like them, not obviously not envious to the point where you have bad negative feelings towards that person. So the next verse says, ذوق دارد هر کسی در طاعتی لاجرم نشکیبد از وی ساعتی. Let me see. Brother Raza.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Because everyone takes delight in some act of devotion and consequently cannot bear to miss it even for a while.
Right. So then the next few couplets are also a continuation of this and are very interesting. And it's the basic theme of it is that the ordinary people, they do their prayer at fixed times, the fixed 5 times a day, and that's me. I'm actually one of the ordinary people. But the devotion of the true lovers, those that truly have love for Allah, their worship isn't fixed, subject to fixed time, isn't it? It transcends time. And so I'll go ahead and read the Farsi for this. And maybe I'll just read it one couplet at a time and we can read and talk about the translation. So, پنج وقت آمد نماز رهنمون عاشقان فی صلات دائمون. So we can go back to the top of the list, Brother Saber.
The ritual prayer is 5 times daily, but the guide for lovers is the verse they who are in prayer continually.
Yeah, so this, again, another example of Mawlana Rumi blending Farsi and Arabic together, particularly the Quran. Basically, as it says, right, the ritual prayer is 5 times daily. Then it says, Ashaqan, those who are the lovers of Allah. Fi salatihim, fi salatin da'imun. It's a reference to the verse of the Quran, right, where Allah is talking about the mu'minun, alladhina hum fi salatihim da'imun. Those who are continuously in prayer, the true believers.
Yeah, and I think that's important to state and to point out in order to really understand, for me anyway, that I'm seeing to really understand the words of Rumi, rahimahullah, you definitely have to be rooted in the Quran and the Sunnah, lest you fall into a trap and forget that he's talking about actually being a Muslim. Because he's not negating the 5 daily prayers, but he's actually referring to the Quran where it's like, no, the believers do what's obeyed and then do more and do more.
Exactly. That's such a great point. I don't, I fail to see how those who don't know the context of the Quran and don't see the actual, the Arabic, right? If you don't know the Arabic, the references that it's making to verses in the Quran, I think it's so easy to just misunderstand what he's saying here. I mean, I'm curious to see how Deepak Chopra translates this. This verse.
As Assalamualaikum, Brother Badi, and I'm from the subcontinent, and it's very common there. because a lot of people feel that, that I'm always in prayer, but I don't need to make the farad, So I think the fact that the Sharia and the Tasawwuf are sort of, two wings of the bird, people don't realize that. So either people are too heavy on the Tasawwuf or they're too heavy on the Sharia.
That's right.
And for the bird to fly, you need kind of both.
That's exactly right.
Fortunate, at least I know from the Indian subcontinent, that is the case.
Yeah, no, it's the same. Even in Iran, we see the same thing. Not everybody, but you see a certain. It's kind of laughable when you think about it. You see like a certain fragment of society. They're actually not religious. They're all about, hey, let's put this Arab religion of Islam, let's put that aside. Let's go back to our roots. Let's go back to our Persian roots. Let's go back to Rumi. I'm like, wait a second. Rumi is basically a translation of the Quran.
Yes.
Are we reading the same book? So then in the next verse, the next couplet, Mawlana Rumi says, "Ne be panj aram girad an khomar, rast guyam, ne be sad, bal sad hezar." Brother Lavan.
Wine headache that is in those heads is not relieved by 5 times, nor by 500,000.
Right. So, again, over here, wine headache. Mawlana Rumi is not he's not permitting drinking wine, but he's talking about that when you that level of love, right? That drunkenness that one feels when they're in love, right? The true ashiq of Allah has that feeling in their heart and in their that's the feeling they get when they pray, when they're in remembrance of Allah. And that the person who's at that level is what he's saying is 5 prayers is not enough for that person, right? Even 500,000 is not enough. So these next 2 verses, when I read the Farsi and the English, I actually I didn't fully understand it, so I had to go back and read some context about it. So there's a hadith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, it's when you don't, as Brother Lavan was saying, when you don't know the Arabic, when you don't know the Quran and the Sunnah, and you read these verses, visit once a week, you think it's just talking about, you don't know what it's talking about, but this is actually referring to a hadith. I think it was narrated, I believe it was narrated by Abu Huraira, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Zurghibban tazdad hubban." It means visit me less so that your love for me will remain high, will remain abundant. And I believe the story behind it was Abu Huraira used to come visit Prophet Muhammad very, very frequently. And then Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him this. He said, "Zurghibban tazdad hubban." Basically, don't visit me this frequently, right? Visit me less so that you'll love me more. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? We see that we have this relationship with our kids, with our wives, with our best friends. Sometimes when you see people too much, you tend to take their presence, or with our parents, right? Unfortunately, you tend to take their presence for granted when you see people too much, but like when there's a little bit of gap in between, that actually causes you to appreciate and miss them more, right? So now what Mawlana Rumi does here is so beautiful. Again, blending Farsi and Arabic. He says, نیست زرق بن وظیفه ماهیان زان که بی دریا ندارد انس جان. Actually, so in the Farsi, the Arabic and the two couplets are switched in order. Let me read the next one and then I'll read the one I just read again. Okay, so نیست زرق بن وظیفه عاشقان سخت مستسقی است جان صادقان. So who is next on my list? Brother Tahir.
Bismillah. Visit once a week is not the ration for those fishes, since
Or
they
2671, the one before that.
visit once a week is not the ration for lovers. The soul of the sincere lovers has an intense craving to drink.
Yeah. So again, when the Farsi, the way Mawlana Rumi says it is really cool. He says Nist Zurqaban. So he switches from Farsi to Arabic. So he's saying, you know what Prophet Muhammad said about, Zurqaban tazdad hubban? That applies to normal people. It doesn't apply to the lovers. That's not, it says Nist Zurqaban vazife ashaqan. Vazife means it's not their Nist vazife means it's not their responsibility. It's not, this hukm, this commandment from the Prophet it doesn't apply to them. Okay, it doesn't apply to those who are ashiq. Sakht mustasqis jan as-sadiqan. It means the soul of the sincere lovers, right? Is in a deep state of what is described as mustasqi. Mustasqi is a state. It's like a condition where it's kind of like a disease in some sense, where no matter how much you have this endless thirst, no matter how much water you drink, you still feel this desperate, intense thirst and craving to drink. And it's saying the lovers, that's the feeling that they have, right? It's like somebody who's just infinitely thirsty. So that this verse or this commandment from the Prophet, this doesn't apply to them. And then so the next verse, it says Nist zurq ban vazife mahiyan zan ke bi darya nadarad uns jan. Brother Sajid.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
So is that the one that in spite of the yearning?
No. 2672.
Oh, so it's visit once a week is not the ration for those fishes, since they feel no spiritual joy without the sea.
Yeah, so basically the analogy that Maulana Rumi is making between somebody who is a true ashiq is kind of like a fish. That's a fish that's, despite the fact that the fish is in, an infinite sea or ocean of water, which is infinite compared to the size of the fish when you think about it. No matter how much water they're submerged in, their thirst is not going to be quenched. In fact, you take them out of the water, that's when they're going to die. And the true lover of Allah, no matter how much he gets submerged in Allah, no matter how much worship that person does, also is similar to the fish, right? They feel no spiritual joy without Allah.
Excuse me, Brother Mahdi. Could you just could you tell us what page you're on in the Farsi?
Yes. So in the Farsi, we're on page 28 right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the next verse or the next couplet is actually, it's not in the English. So I'll just read the Farsi and do my best to translate it. It says, آب این دریا که حایل بقعه‌ای است با خمار ماهیان خود جرعه‌ای است. It means it means that the water that is in this darya, this sea, which is it's a tremendous amount of water. با خمار ماهیان خود جرعه است. Yani for the fish, the intoxicated or the drunken fish is just a little amount, is less than like a cup of water, right? And so the analogy here is really beautiful when you think about it. The ashiq, right, who is drunk in the love of Allah, no matter how much worship, no matter how much that person gets submerged in Allah, it's not enough to satisfy them. They just want more. It's similar to a fish that, despite the fact that it's in a huge ocean, but to the drunken fish, right, as it's saying, it's saying, it's kind of saying that the asha of Allah is like a drunken fish, that no matter how much water you put it in, for the fish, it's still just it's just a little amount. Okay, so the next the final verse, or the final couplet, I mean, I'll go ahead and read that. Again, it's going back to the ashiq, right? The true lover of Allah. با وجود آن که دریا در کشند خشک لب باشند و هم sorry. با وجود آن که دریا در کشند خشک لب باشند و هم در آتشند. Brother Raza, would you like to read the English? 2673.
In spite of the yearning of the fishes, the water of this sea, which is a tremendous place, is but a single draught, too little to satisfy them.
Yeah. So again, I think that sums up what we've read so far. So if anybody has thoughts or comments.
I have a question, Brother Manny. You know,
Sure.
where these headings are, like, for example, ordinary people pray at fixed times. The devotion of true lovers is not subject to fixed times and transcends time. Is that an actual couplet from Rumi's Mathnawi, or is that something Imam Kashifi added as a heading?
Yes, the latter. It's a heading that that Mawlana Kashifi adds.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not a poem. It's not a couplet in Mathnawi. And what's amazing about the Lubb-e Lubab is that Mawlana Kashifi actually, he kind of makes a new story out of the Mathnawi, the way that he rearranges the verses and kind of thematically organizes them. He almost makes a new narrative and a new story out of it.
So perhaps this is his commentary at tafsir of the Mathnawi. So he's explaining the couplets.
You're talking about the headings?
The Kashifi. You're talking about the explanation of the Mawlana Kashifi on Mathnawi. So what you're saying is that he's adding his own meaning. He's further explaining the couplet, his own thoughts.
Well, yeah, that's what these headings do, right? He's basically he's organizing them and grouping them together and essentially telling what the theme of those couplets are.
But if you go back to the one which she is comparing the devotional work to the sun, that like to have some discussion on that. It goes back to the first one which we read. He's trying to find what's the he's trying to connect the intensity of the devotion.
Yes. Yeah. So the Farsi for that verse is داروی مردی بخور اندر عمل تا شوی خورشید تا شوی خورشید گرم اندر حمل. And yeah, so basically داروی مردی, daru means medicine, so داروی مردی بخور, eat the medicine of manliness in your devotional works, by engaging in devotional works, so you may become like a hot radiant sun. Again, it kind of also it goes back to also the theme of the last few rivulets that we were discussing, that when you've got it, right, when you've reached that true level of Iman, people are going to want to have what you have. And it's kind of saying something, if you think about it, it's similar theme here, right? It's, you become like a radiant sun. You'll what you do will be so beautiful and glowing for people, that they're going to want to have what you have.
So Brother Mary, I have a question, not so much as to this, but you talk about ashiki. So when you talk about the Mehboob and the Mohib, so what is the Farsi equivalent of that, of the ashiki, and what?
Yeah, so Farsi, we also, like, there's different terms for it, but...
the lover and the beloved, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we also say ashiq or ma'shuq, yeah.
Oh, ma'shuq, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, ashiki and ma'shuq, okay. So, yeah. Yes, because it is hard to be it's better to be the beloved than, because once you become the lover, then Allah Ta'ala puts you through trials. But if you're the beloved, then it's easier.
No, that's right. Yeah. There's another very well-known Persian poet, Hafiz, and the very first verse, or the very first couplet of his book starts out with a poem that says, Allah ya ayyuhas saqi adir ka'san wa nawilaha. It means, O Saqi. Saqi refers to the person who is passing around the wine. Again, not real wine, but
right.
the drunkenness and the love of Allah. So O Saqi, who's, O Saqi, pass around the wine and everybody enjoy it. که عشق آسان نمود اول ولی افتاد به مشکلها. Which means that love seemed very easy at first, ولی افتاد به مشکلها, but then the problems started. And so, as you said, it seems easy at first, that it's okay, just good, nice spiritual feelings inside, but actually, as you mentioned, Allah tests those who love Him. That's actually the hardest part. And the more, the deeper the more you love Allah, the more that your love for Him will get tested.
Right.
Yeah.
But the true lover would not feel that, because when you have the intensity of the love, regardless of the difficulty, you take it with that pleasure, because that love, what you have, is, I know we take the road which is sort of, people think of pain, but those who are intense love, they would not feel it, because they're focused on the mashuk.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's analogous to marriage when you think about it, right? I mean, a lot of times, maybe young people, or when they first get married, their love for their spouse might be, that superficial, emotional feeling that may exist at the beginning. But when they run into the true issues that you have to deal with in marriage, they can't handle it, right? It's too hard, and that's kind of like the test of true love, if you think about it. And but as Brother Tahir mentioned, when there's true love between husband and wife, then you don't feel it. It's just normal issues that you resolve. And when I guess the love of Allah is analogous to that, the love between the slave and Allah. And the true lover of Allah is always satisfied, no matter, is in Farsi we say razi bil razay khuda. Imam Husayn alayhi salam, when they say that when he was in the last moments of his life, he said his final words were ilahi radan birida'ik. Oh Allah, I'm satisfied with what you are satisfied with. Sabran ala bala'ik. I'm patient towards the test that you're putting me through. Sabran ala bala'ik, tasliman la amrik. Submitting myself. I'm in a state of submitting myself to your command. La ma'buda siwak. There's no ma'bud, no one worthy of worship except for you. Ya ghiyath al-mustaghithin. Oh, he who helps those who are in need of help. Or in the case of Prophet Ayub, alayhi salam, right? How despite all of the trials and tribulations that he was going through, he refused to complain. He initially even refused to even ask. He felt, and when his wife said, ask Allah to help us to get us out of these state, and his response was, do you know how many days, how many years I lived with a blessed life? And he felt, ashamed that he should ask Allah to remove him from that situation. And finally, when it got to a point where he was really hard, his only words were "Anni massani al-dhur," that dhur, affliction has touched me. He felt embarrassed to even complain about it, and that's the true love of Allah. When you've reached that level where whatever Allah puts you through, you still take it with a smile, and you take it gladly, and you're satisfied with what Allah has given you. Yeah, really good point, Brother Tahir.
I think I just want to add sometime, we forget that, alhamdulillah, we don't count the blessing, and we complain when there's some difficulty. May Allah give Jannah to my mother, rahmatullah. She used to say that, mashallah, towards the end of her life, she had this severe arthritis and she was in a lot of pain. And then she would tell me that, all those years I count, which Allah has given me this good health, I used to run around and do all these things for 70 years. So how can I complain for this towards the end when I have this? So she used to reflect that, I keep counting on those days when I was well and healthy and, would do all these things. But now, so, mashallah, so I think she used to remind herself and tell me that, I see this, I think of those days. I don't think of this now, but I think of those days when I had a good health. So you mean that you are in this state of gratefulness and not in the state of complaint.
Subhanallah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I hope, I pray if I get to that point, that I will also have that kind of attitude. That's beautiful. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts? I guess it's.
I think
Yeah,
sorry. I just want to say one takeaway. I think every of these lessons which we have, I think it's important to have some takeaways for us to, as we attend these classes, is important. Alhamdulillah, what I see is the mandatory prayers of 5 times a day is important. That's what I'm just thinking of, reflecting myself, that I think the 24/7 in the state of ibadah is in between the prayers. It's not just the prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So when we leave this, obligatory ibadah, which is 5 minutes prayer, and then leave, and what the real test is really outside, and that ibadah is never ending. It means that whatever you do, whether it's your work, or you are dealing with your community, your family, whatever, how do you? And I think that's the test. I see that as an ibadah of in different states. So, and then you're absolutely right. When we think of ibadah, we always think of the obligations we have, and we don't think beyond that. And that's why I think we disconnect the cord, because now you're trying to take things in your own hand and not in that same state which you are a few moments ago while you were standing in front of your creator. It's important to protect on that.
Yeah, that's a great point and great takeaway. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Brother Mahdi, Assalamu alaikum. This is Akhtar Ali Khan. Yeah, I just wanted to, along the same line what Brother Tahir said, wanted to comment on that hadith. I think it's hadith Qudsi, I'm not sure. The state of a moment is strange. He's happy when he has good times, and he is happy and thankful when he has some tribulation. So someone can correct me if it is a hadith or these are Qudsi, but I just remember that, hearing it. So, those goes along with the line that you should always be thankful in good times or bad times.
Yeah, absolutely. MashaAllah. Okay. So I guess maybe it's 7:30. We had a good session and good discussion today. Should we conclude maybe with a prayer? Would somebody like to do the prayer?
Reza, you want to do a prayer for us, Reza?
Was it, you were saying me?
I think Raza is the right guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد الحمد لله الذي أحيانا بعدما أماتنا وإليه النشور يا رحمن يا الله يا رزاق يا فتاح يا عليم Ya Allah, we call upon you by your 99 most beautiful names, your 99 names of mercy and power and majesty and rahmah. Ya Allah, we thank you for all that you have done for us, for all of the moments of our lives which you have been gentle with us and which you have allowed us to exist and given us immense blessing. We thank you for allowing us to rise this morning and allowing our souls to re-enter our bodies this morning, and that you are merciful in allowing us to live another day. Ya Allah, we ask that you are gentle with us, we ask that you forgive all of our sins through this study of your words. Ya Allah, we ask that you bless all of those who are involved, all of those who are present and all of those who are absent. Ya Allah, we ask that you have mercy upon the authors of these works, namely Imam Sheikh Jalaluddin al-Rumi. Ya Allah, we ask that you Have mercy upon all of the families of all of the people who are listening and all of those who are absent. Ya Allah, we ask that you are content with us, and that we ask that you make us content with your will and your word at all times. Ya Allah, we ask that you make us in praise of you at all times. Ya Allah, we ask that you through this study of your words, Ya Allah, we ask that you make us purified human beings. Ya Allah, we ask that you make us true lovers of you. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.